But of course, like you mentioned, right, this idea of a Green New Deal does pose a threat to this imperialist order. And so as a result, you have these kinds of green capitalism attempts to say, oh, here's a Green New Deal, like that basically leaves this entire structure in place. Can you talk a little bit about the attempts by capital, to try to offer these fixes that maintain capitalism and why they just can't work if you actually want to fix the climate crisis? I mean, one thing that you talk about, you have a whole chapter about these technological advances and trying to promote this as it can just fix everything. So can you talk a bit about that?
So there are two sets of fixes that are being considered. One set of fixes is this kind of dream world where we can move to full maintain current levels of energy use in the north, and we can fully replace it with renewable energy, and furthermore, that level of per capita energy use supposedly can be extended to the south. So you could call this the kind of cornucopian or go mine Mars for rare metals and minerals solution. And a part and parcel of that solution is, for example, that we are going to lighten the human impact on the planet by, for example, concentrating all of humanity in mega cities like Judge Dredd or something, and then the countryside will just kind of be this huge biodiversity preserve, and there'll be it'll be peppered here and there with vertical farms that in fact concentrate agricultural production, so that agricultural production is occurring in its own kind of apartheid zone. I'm using the term deliberately, walled off from what's called wild nature, and it's a series of so part of what the ruling class is putting forward with the kind of avid and enthusiastic complicity of much of the left, like the aristocratic left journal, New Left Review, founded by British aristocrats, in fact, is this idea that you can just carry out this kind of suite of technological solutions, and you either one will not have to actually carry out systemic social change, or systemic social change will kind of look like what used to be called modernization theory. In other words, that you can kind of create a worldwide prosperous middle class living in cities, having republican democracy like we have in the U.S. in the 1950s, except people couldn't vote, and it was built on colonized land, and we were eradicating Korea and soon to eradicate Vietnam. So it's of course based on a series of erasures, but it's also this idea, it's holding out this kind of ideal typical, or this kind of fairyland model of what the world could look like. And this is kind of the classic conceit of modernization theory, based on the kind of diffusion, this kind of fairy dust of technology and wisdom and rationality applied to social systems, north and south, in order to kind of alchemize them into a new kind of zero impact ecological system, socio-ecological system, which kind of hits its peak, its kind of utopian tomfoolery, when you read about these people wanting to go mine the asteroids and colonize, of course, always colonize. They always want to colonize Mars, for example, and shift the population into space stations. Space exploration is the new place, the new kind of locus for humanity to continue its long flourishing mission to conquer virgin lands and so forth. So this is one set of this is the technological set of solutions that are being put forward. This is not, they're not serious. This is what is very fundamental about that. So as soon as one digs the slightest bit, and if one knows the slightest thing, for example, about agriculture, about resource needs, about even the plans themselves as they are laid out in the technical specifications, one immediately learns that this is actually just, it doesn't even purport to be serious, even on the part of the propagandists who produce it. So, for example, Aaron Bastani, who may or may not be known as to your listeners as the author of Full Automated Hallucinogenic Luxury Space Communism, wrote a book published by, again, the so-called radical leftist press Verso that first of all celebrated the Green Revolution, which led to hundreds of thousands of peasants, Indian peasants now ingesting pesticide. This is actually being celebrated by a left-wing press, and this should be lingered upon, right? This is actually this is blitheringly racist. So this book was celebrating the Green Revolution on the one hand. On the other hand, it was advocating asteroid mining. As soon as one looks at a source like NASA, which is in large measure captured by the US military industrial complex, NASA puts out information stating there is no economic possibility for asteroid mining for almost any metal, except maybe for platinum. And any form of kind of metallurgy or metal extraction that takes place in space, even theoretically, could only be made profitable if you had industrial platforms in space. And this is because like you can't bring metals from space to Earth very easily. It's just like anyone knows that. So this is like these kind of illusions or delusions or hallucinations are, even when you look at the technical literature, which is very easy to find and which I map out some of in the book, they don't they aren't even believed in by the experts who are supposedly informing the propaganda analysis itself. I mean, you take another one, which is this idea of a full renewable transition, which of course also then becomes the basis for a lot of kind of left progressive cornucopian ideas about the universal imposition of progress. Everybody could have limitless energy. This is and so forth. You look at it, and then you go through Stan Cox, was, of course, actually a barley breeder. And you can always rely on the kind of radical agronomists to actually be focused on, like, is this possible or not? Because their work is actually focused on feeding people, not based on selling books. So, he went through the technical literature, and he saw that when you looked at the annexes, that actually detailed how much energy would be allotted for this worldwide clean energy transition, you would see that you would have permanent disparities on the order of 5 to 10 times between, for example, Haitian and or African on the whole and US energy use. So it's basically saying permanent energy apartheid between North and South, even accepting the feasibility of some of these proposals. For example, that he was proposing massive offshore wind installations in northern Canada, and people who have been to northern Canada know it's going to be very difficult to put offshore wind installations off northern Canada, right? It's icy and cold there much of the year, and the topography is like frighteningly difficult. So it's not at all realistic, right? As soon as one goes into the technical literature, that actually there aren't these easy fix technical solutions that can actually maintain our world as it is. We actually have to imagine and accept a different world that could actually be a very nice world, but that wouldn't look like the world as it currently exists.